Hello guys, and welcome to another Final Fantasy XIV Dungeons for Dummies. This is Zidster here. Today I again am working with the duty support system for several reasons, but we'll get into that as we jump into this dungeon. Now this is another dungeon of A Realm Reborn. This is a story quest dungeon. This one is called, and I'm probably not pronouncing this right, but this is how we've always called it, Haukke Manor. This dungeon has had several changes done to it, and we will discuss that as we go through. But let's jump in and have a good time. Now I'm going as a white mage this time, so you can kind of get a little glance as to how the white mage works. Now we're going to go into this first door. Most people who have not done this dungeon before usually skip this door because they see monsters ahead and, well, you know, beeline for monsters. It's pretty cool. Going and killing monsters is actually loads of fun. However, if you look over in the right hand corner of the screen, there is this tiny key. Surprise, surprise, you need to have that tiny key. Also, keep in mind, DPS, healers, even tanks, if you can, the manor servants, they kind of look like succubus. They will use this big AoE on the floor that makes you, I'm not sure if it's called hysteria or terrored. In any case, it makes you paralyzed for a little while, in which case you can be hit. So try and stay out of that as best you can. I say DPS and healers for certain, but tanks sometimes cannot get out of it fast enough. So keep that in mind. So as we finish killing off this one manor maid servant, which she doesn't want to die. Alright, here we go. Now we gotta go and get the tiny key. Yes, you must have tiny key. Now, as we're moving on, we're going to make a left. And now we're going to go have fun with these monsters. These are the ones that everybody makes a beeline for because, well, monsters. Anyhow, healers, keep in mind, if you're doing this in a group, tanks must take priority because sometimes they will pull an awful lot, in which case it's fine, especially if you're a white mage or astrologian. Those classes actually do quite well. In white mage cases, use regen if you've got it. Those of you that don't, make double sure that you are the right level and check your class quest abilities. Sometimes you have to do class quests to unlock certain abilities. So if you've got regen, great. If not, you can use cure. Just keep an eye on everybody. And in the interim, doing damage if you can. If not the end of the world. And here we go with another manor maid servant. We're going to take her out. Now, you'll notice here, I am not pulling. Again, I am with the duty support system. And because of that, I have to be careful. They are not the smartest group, as one of my viewers on the last video I did, 1,000 Miles of Totorak, noticed. So you kind of have to be careful. Now in here, you have to go in here and fight off these monsters, because if you look at the hallway ends. It kind of has like a break in it. So you kind of have to go through the rooms, and see that locked door on the other side? Well, that's what the tiny key is for. So we have to take out the monsters, use the tiny key to get into the next section, which, again, Don't forget the tiny key. There will be another tiny key in that room. Now, I'm not sure if I'm hoping that things are not being heard from behind me. I'm not in a room that's entirely noise. What do they call that? Anyway, keeping out noise. So I'm sorry if you hear something else in the background. This is why I try to do some of my recordings in the early morning when no one else is up and I can do my own thing. Anyway, here we go. Here's the tiny key. Now we're going to take that tiny key, and you cannot go further down that hallway. Well, technically, sorry, I got that mixed up. Yes, you can go down that hallway. However, we're going to use that tiny key on this door because this has more monsters and a chest, and more monsters means more XP. So we're going to make sure that we go in here and we're going to get all these monsters. It gives us extra experience, and that chest there can also increase your gear or glamour or seals, as I've mentioned many times before. Again, healers, keep tabs on your tanks because they can take damage very quickly. Now once we're done there, we're going to leave this room and we're going to go to the left, which, wait a minute, turn around, there we go. We're going to go to the left and we're going to make a right. And wait, oh wait, beeline, monsters, yay. Okay, so we're going to go for these monsters and we're going to take them out. The room to the right of me there, I do not believe has any chests in it, but I probably will walk in there just to show you that, you know, there's that room and there may be a chest in it or may not. There definitely is no monsters, but make sure to check every single room in Haukke Manor, because in Haukke Manor are a lot of, again, tiny keys. Most people, they speed run this dungeon. It's a leveling dungeon, usually a roulette leveling dungeon, and most people speed run it because they're just doing their leveling roulette for the day and it doesn't really matter. But for those of you who want the extra experience, want to gain those levels, or want to get the gear, or just for the pure sake of having fun killing monsters, will want to know every crook and crevice. Now again, we have another manor maid servant. Those things are a pain in the butt. They really drive you nuts, and they take a lot of damage before you can take them down. Now as white mage, I'm taking this monster down, and keep in mind they drop poison on your tanks and on your DPS. And hey, look, I was right, there's a tiny key. Better get that tiny key. Alright, now we're going to make a left. Now, you can make a right here and ignore these monsters down the hallway, because all you have to do is attack that monster and that'll be the end of it. But we want the extra XP. So I went and I grabbed those mobs so that our tank can take them and we can get more XP. But once we take these monsters down, we will be coming to our very first boss. And I will walk you through the mechanics of it. It's not terribly difficult. Again, this dungeon is actually kind of fun. However, to go through it in its entirety takes a little longer than expected, especially with the duty support system. There's part of me that keeps hoping that at some point they will have the duty support system, or even the trust system, where the DPSs, the ones that at that level can actually use AoE attacks, will actually use them. That will make things move a lot faster. And of course, tanks being able to do AoE moves and healers being able to do AoE moves would be very nice. But that has not happened yet, so we do things the slow way. Now moving on to the right. Well, actually, yeah, okay. To the right is the boss door. To the left, there is a locked door. You cannot get into it. This one you can, using the little tiny key we found in the other room. We're going to go in here. There's no monsters. There is a chest. So we're going to go back out. Unless you wanted the chest. And we're going to turn around and we're going to ignore the IV door. You have to have a special key to get through that door, which you get after defeating this boss. So we're going to fight this succubus, for better use of the word. Okay. Anyway, she will do fire, AoEs on the floor. Make sure you are not standing in one. She will also do the terror move that makes your character stand still, which makes it really, really bad, because if your character stands still and she throws fire at you, well, you get my meaning. She also will send out large AoEs going in a conal shape towards the tank, so DPSs do not stand there. White mages or healers of any kind, don't stand there. And healers, be prepared to heal the tanks, because they will take a boatload of damage. Yep, and there goes the fire. Good thing I didn't have terror. That way I could get out of it. Now, if any of you are wondering, oh, I like your gear, I want to glamour it, how do I get it? I'm just giving you fair warning. Most of the gear that I wear in these dungeons as I go through them, because I do use this as my main character. However, I do have several alternates. They are not as high up as this character. This character has a lot of level 90 gear. Now, this is the green key. Now you can go to the chest, open the chest, but don't go through the door that was behind the boss. Turn around and go back the way you came, back to that IV door. If you go back the other way, it just takes you to the beginning of the dungeon. And going back to my gear, well, you'll get it eventually. Now, this dungeon originally, there were mobs down the ladders, but now instead we just jump over the edge and we attack these monsters. Of course, you might not want to go down first, especially if you're a healer. Unless you're a tank, don't jump down there first, unless you're with a duty support system and you know what you're doing. Now, once these monsters are down, again, there will be a little key that we have to pick up. That will open up these cells that we will come across. Now, this area is where a lot of people do speed running of the dungeon, because they don't really care. They just want to zip through as fast as they possibly can. But there are a lot of cells that have treasure chests, and a lot of cells that have extra mobs. Might as well go ahead and get in there and get those mobs. For experience, for seals, for glamour, or for gear that you may or may not need. Also, if you're into the crafting things, if you've got desynthesis, you can also desynthesize some of that gear. It can give you some really good items that you can either put up for sale or reuse for crafting. Now, this door right here, the Carnation door, we cannot go through. So, we have to make an entire circuit of the dungeon. This is the dungeon of Haukke Manor. Usually, that mob is not there. But she decided to go all the way around and we had to come this way. So anyway, here we go. We got a cell. Woohoo! Locked door. Must open. Oh, crud. And of course, as soon as I unlock it, Mr. Tank from Duty Support System decided to go and take on a bunch of mobs without telling the healer. Bad Tank. Anyhow, once we take these guys out, which we would have had to have taken them out to go through the hallway anyway, we will move into that room. So keep in mind, everything you do in these dungeons, these early dungeons, you may think they're stupid, lame. You know, you're looking forward to getting to the good stuff. Well, this was, at one time, the good stuff. I have played this game since open beta, which has been over 10 years. My family has played with me, my in-laws, my friends. This has been a wonderful thing to do. So these are treasured memories. In that room was a treasure chest, which again, seals and other things that you may want to use it for. Here we go. In this room, we have another tiny key. Now, most people skip these rooms. Why, you say? Well, because, again, it goes through the dungeon very quickly. But if you go into these rooms, the one that we unlocked had a treasure chest. These two have tiny keys, which unlock other cells. This cell has mobs, and this gives you extra experience. Yeah, let's go ahead and skip extra experience. If you're level 90, like I am, yeah, I can understand wanting to zip through, but keep in mind, if you are level 90 and you're doing this as part of your mentor roulette leveling, keep in mind you've got other people in your party with you that may be lower level and wanting to get the experience. So it doesn't hurt you to spend a couple extra minutes going through and killing these mobs. That way they get a little more out of the dungeon than you. But again, this is a game for fun. This is not our life. This is not, it's going to be the end of the world because we didn't do this in like record time. If you're wanting to do that, go in with your own group or go in with the duty support system. I recommend your own group because the duty support system is not going to do it in record time. Anyway, as we come out, we come around the corner and we have more mobs. Oh joy. I know, it sounds annoying, but again, in the end, you're here to have fun, aren't you? If that be the case, enjoy. I can tell you, when I've had a rough day at work and I have been irritated, the best thing to do is to be able to log in, and even in the duty support system, go in and kill a bunch of monsters and have some fun and release some of that pent-up anger without doing damage to real-life property. Now this group of mobs takes a little longer to take out. Terribly sorry about that. But again, I am working with the server AI, which has not been adjusted. Again, I'm seriously hoping they adjust this because this is sad. Now we're going to come around this corner and there'll be another two locked doors. And we're going to unlock this one. And this one's not necessary to unlock, but there is a treasure coffer in here. And then this one is necessary to unlock because there is a key in here that you have to unlock the Carnation door, the one that we could not open to begin with. This is not a tiny key, it is a yellow key. We need to have that to unlock that door. So in here is 3 more mobs, and we will take them out. And then we will move on. And there is another cell that we can open just past here, because we have an extra key. Isn't that fun? An extra key. You're going to find that in a lot of A Realm Reborn dungeons, there's a lot more to them than the average dungeons. And it actually makes them rather interesting. They've taken away from some of the more annoying things, like in Thousand Miles of Toto Rack, there were areas you just get totally lost. And you end up turning yourself around and going, where am I supposed to go? This dungeon is a little more straightforward than that, but there are areas you can get lost in. Now we come in here and there's some more mobs and another tiny key. Trust me, you're going to want that little tiny key because it will open another area that most people skip, that will have more monsters. Now we go pick up the tiny key that we'll need for later. And we're going to move on to the second boss of this dungeon. This boss is actually a 2 monster boss. There is the Manor Jester, which is an imp, and the Manor Steward, which is a skeleton. My recommendation is to go for the Manor Jester first, because the Manor Jester does long-range magic attacks, primarily on the tank. So the tank will take a lot of damage very quickly. And of course, my team is not listening to me. Surprise, surprise. But anyhow, healers, if you've got damage over time abilities, such as in White Mage, this is Arrow. Put those on the bosses. That way it actually helps take the monsters down that much faster. Keep an eye on your tanks, because again, in the duty support system, they think that it's a great idea to keep going for the same one. So I'm going to change tactics here and attack the Manor Steward, get that over with, and then go back to the Jester. Now, this part of the dungeon, back in the old days, you would use the feature return. You know, how you would return to your hometown or whatever if you were out in the field. You would use return here in the dungeon, surprisingly enough. Because otherwise you would have to backtrack through the dungeon. We will need this bloody parchment to unlock the next section of the dungeon. And the Aether Portal has been added for people who didn't remember to use return. So it kind of makes it a little more convenient, which is nice. Now we're back at the beginning, and we're going to go up these steps, and we're going to unlock this sealed barrier with the bloody parchment. Now we're going to go down this hallway. There's some more mobs. Normally most people go the other way, avoiding these mobs and avoiding the locked door down the hallway, which has more mobs and a treasure chest. And like I said, most people skip this because it's not necessary, especially if you are very high level, like 80 or 90. It kind of gives you very little experience. So it's technically not worth the time and effort that you go to. But if you're lower level, anywhere between level 1 and, well, you can't do this at level 1, but anywhere between the level of this dungeon and I'd say 50, 60, maybe even 70, it is well worth it to try and grab all the experience you can from these dungeons. Now this hallway, I dropped down. Not the absolute end of the world, because you just turn around, you go back to the beginning and climb back up. If you've missed something in the dungeon and you want to go back, you can use that hallway. Yeah, most people don't. But anyway, it's there. It's a unique feature of the dungeon. So we're going to continue down this hallway after having killed off the mobs and not jumped off the hallway floor, and go to this locked door. We're going to use that tiny key. No, we're not jumping down there. We're going to use that tiny key we picked up earlier in that cell that nobody ever opens. And we're going to fight these monsters. Oh, wow, more XP. Again, tanks, healers, DPS, anyone who is level 90 and just going through this for your roulettes. Keep in mind, not everybody in the dungeon is doing that. So you might want to be a little nicer to them, take the extra time, and let them gain as much experience as they possibly can out of the dungeon. Now, after we've taken out the monsters in here, again, this is another reason to come in here. There's a treasure coffer in the corner. Say you have someone in your party who needs the stuff in that treasure coffer. There's no way to know, because what's in those treasure coffers is random. They may need it, they may not. But it never hurts to stop and look. Alright, we took those mobs out. Again, if you need that treasure coffer, feel free to go to it. Now we're going to turn around and go back the way we came. We're going to make a right. And then a sharp left. Here we go. Now we go back the way we came. And you'll see this one eye, this Manor sentry. We were fighting him before the first boss. And he just kind of runs away. Well, surprise, surprise, he's going to do it again. Now, you go and fight him until his hit points drop to at least a little bit below halfway, and he will run away again. Little coward that he is. And that will open the door to the final boss. Now, there will be some different mechanics to the final boss. The original way that the final boss was done, I have to admit, I actually enjoyed it better. However, this has made it more simplistic. There were these lanterns in the four corners of the room, and they would turn on, and every so often they would cause lightning to go across the floor in the room, causing party-wide damage. So, those that weren't directly fighting the boss would run around to the corners and turn them off. Well, they have gotten rid of that. Now, this one's a little more simplistic. You basically tank and spank the boss until you hear her do this high-pitched scream, which she's about to do. And when she does that, she has one of two things that will happen. A one-eye will be summoned, in which case you'll see that room-wide AoE turn away from the one-eye. Otherwise, you will be petrified. Blue mages, this is where you go and get your petrification spell, if that is something that you're wanting to do. Now she screams again. This time she brings in a lady maidservant. And we have to take this mob down. You don't have to. I mean, you could ignore it. It's not like it's going to be the end of the world. However, it makes things a lot easier if you do. We're going to continue to fight the boss. And eventually what will happen is when she summons another one-eye, she will jump towards the one-eye. And that's where we have what's called a panic mechanic. she does this thing where it pulls you in and you're like, oh no, the one eye, I'm going to be petrified. Fear not. The terror, or it's not really terror, it's so much as seduction, wears off, and you can turn around and look away from the one eye. So don't freak out. Now she's going to go over here and we're going to go through the same mechanics again. There's the Century one eye. And we're going to, again, turn away. And watch yourself, because she is now going to do terror, which will freeze you in place. So you definitely do not want to get stuck in that. Looks like she's summoning again. This time, again, it's a mob. Pretty certain it's a mob. Nope, it's the one eye again. And again, she does the same thing where you have to turn around at the last second. That is a tank buster. Healers, make sure to heal your tanks, and tanks, make sure to mitigate. And there you have it. That is Haukke Manor. A little more complicated than the others that we've done thus far, but it's still a fun dungeon to do. I hope this has been helpful to those that are new and old. And here we go. Well, thank you for joining me for Haukke Manor. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope there were some things you gleaned from it. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And we will meet you next time for another lovely adventure through Eorzea and Final Fantasy XIV Dungeons for Dummies. Keep watch on my videos, and I am doing a live stream every Friday evening or every Friday morning on different classes. See you later.